done making excuses. I have 86 days until I turn 25, and I want to finish this next draft of my book before then. The only problem is I've made basically no progress on it this year. The last time I was actively working on it was over the holidays when I did my third round with an editor for my query package, and during that process we pretty much completely redid my synopsis, which means I need to do a new draft from scratch. But I'm ready to finally get back into my writing routine, and so today I'm going to talk about all the ways I do that, the first of which is changing my environment. Now, of course, if you've read as much self-help as I have, that's probably common knowledge at this point, that your environment's really important and that it sets your habits. But I think it's more important to know exactly why you're changing your environment. So for me, I noticed that I will always sit in this spot. No matter what's here. I used to have the table here and then I moved the chairs here, but no matter what, this is where I like to eat, this is where I like to relax. And I just found myself bringing all my activities to this spot. And the chairs that were here before just weren't really meant for things that are a little more active. I found at least I would bring my journal or I would bring my laptop, but I never really wanted to write because it felt like more of a relaxing position. And so even if I had those activities near me and I did everything that I thought would make me want to write when sitting there, I just never did. But if I'm sitting at a table, I'm way more likely to want to write or spread out or brainstorm and do any of the activities that actually move a draft forward. The next thing is that I was giving myself too many options. I would always carry around my notebooks and journals. I would carry around a book. And while I love my new journal system, let me know if you guys would be interested in more journaling stuff, because I have definitely dove headfirst into the journaling and fountain pen world. But my new journal has the journal I use for work and life planning, my general kind of free writing that I do just for normal journaling, and then now a daily planner. And so even between here, there's choices. So anytime I sat down, I would have so many choices that I would either feel paralyzed and not be able to pick one, or I would end up doing none of them and just go on my phone and do something easy, because it's easier to pick and nothing like scrolling than it is to actually pick one of the things that I sat down to do. There is another dimension to it too. I just finished rereading this book, 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Berkman, and unfortunately I spilled my water bottle all over it on the way to work, but highly recommend getting a non-waterlogged copy. But in it, it's all about how you only have so much time, and there's this one thing that has really stuck with me from when I first read it a few years ago, even to now, in that you can really only have 3 big projects at a time, and these projects kind of cross all areas of your life. So one of them usually is work, and for me it's my 9 to 5. One of them I usually group friends and family into one because I really care about putting time and energy into those relationships. And so then that really leaves a third one for hobbies. And honestly, the past few months, that has been taken up by another big project, which is working on my nutrition and fitness and health and getting those habits in place. So even when I did sit down with this kind of things, if it wasn't like general scrolling, then it was usually scrolling about that, because that was my big project and that's what was on my mind. And so if you haven't been writing as much as you want to, honestly, I would encourage you to think about what big 3 things you have going on, and if maybe that's one of the reasons why writing hasn't been able to take front and center, because there's not a slot open. So for the past few days, I've been listening to the audiobook Tiny Experiments, which has reminded me on how I've succeeded in writing drafts in the past. Right now, I'm a little caught up in thinking about the whole thing and jumping way too many steps ahead, thinking about querying and the stress of that. And so I think a little bit of that seeps in anytime I sit down and be like, okay, I'm really going to start on this book. There's all these underlying emotions, thinking about the long-term process and how far away the goal is, and that I need to completely rewrite this draft. But Tiny Experiments talks about making a PACT. I think it's an acronym, and I forget exactly what it stands for. I'll throw it up here. But essentially, you're making a tiny commitment to yourself that for a duration of time, you're going to do a specific task. And for me, in the past, when I say, for the next 30 days, I'm going to write X amount of words for each day, or I really break down the goal. So I'm just saying, okay, today, this is what I need to do. that's always worked really well. And so that's what I'm gonna do. I got this cute little journal that has different days. So for this, there's 100 different entries, and while I have fewer than 100 days before my 25th birthday, which is an arbitrary goal, but it's kind of nice to have something to work towards, after I do my writing, I'm just going to jot down exactly kind of how it felt and a little reflection on the writing itself, so I can write down the number of words that I wrote that day and, you know, kind of how the progress felt. So it's all cataloged in this one notebook. So for me, for the next 86 days, I'm going to try and write 1,200 words a day, and that will get me to a full draft. And honestly, the first few days, I probably need to spend just pulling all of my notes together, which leads me to the next point. I need a refill. I don't know if you can hear, but it is pouring right now. It's so lovely. Now, I love different writing notebooks and utensils and ways to brainstorm and files and different cheat sheets on characters and all these different things as much as the next gal. And I love different writing softwares. I love Scrivener, but I also work in Word. And all of these things are so much fun. But right now, when I'm trying to do a really concentrated goal and say get the next draft, they're a little counterproductive. So my next point in how I'm going to try and accomplish this is I'm going to consolidate. Because I've been working on this project for so many years, it has not been the same organization system every new time I pick up to work on it. So not only do I have notes for it in a variety of different notebooks, and a lot of them, honestly, you've seen on the channel over the years is I'm like, okay, this is going to be a new organization system. This is going to be my new organization system. But I also have multiple different files on my computer. I have 2 different separate Scrivener projects for different drafts as it's changed. Actually, I have 3 different Scrivener projects, and a lot of them inside the Scrivener projects, there's different notes files. I also have files scattered through my notes app. I'll just jot down random things as I think of them in my notes app. Some of them make sense. Some of them don't totally make sense. So there's all of this scattered information, especially the book I'm working on is a fantasy novel, so there's a lot of world building involved. So a lot of that is just spread across all these different places. And over the years, I've had some consolidated versions, but not that many. So what I'm going to do today is the rain. Sorry for the interruption, but the storm really got going there for a second. But anyways, now I'm going to consolidate everything into one journal so that I have all of the notes as I think they should be right now, because they have evolved over time, and so some things might be accurate from this notebook from a few years ago, but some things might not carry through, and I haven't repeated all the notes every time. So I'm going to put everything, and this will be my new source of truth. And also in there, I'm going to include the finalized copies of my synopsis and my query letter the final versions from when I went through them with that editor. Let me know if that would be interesting to you. I did 3 rounds, and I definitely have a lot of different thoughts and reflections on the process on whether it's worth hiring an editor for your query package. So comment down below if you want to hear more about that. Also, I don't know why, but I just printed from Word and it included comments on the margins, which is slightly irritating, but I don't want to waste paper, so I'm just going to keep it as it is and strap these into this notebook. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing that now. I had an amazing idea last night that I think will completely change the pacing of the first part of the novel and even the first chapter. I went through 3 revision cycles with that editor of the first chapter, and that's not even to mention the critique groups I've been in and all of the different iterations of this chapter that there have been. But I have a new idea that I think is really going to give the beginning of the story a little bit more of that oomph to get it through. I don't know. I'll tell you more later. evening now, and it's just about time for me to go to bed, but I did make some fantastic progress. I did my first journal entry for my writing PACT, my writing challenge, and I also got a bunch of my notes transferred over to this one book. I created sections for each character where I'm going to kind of free write the current state of what I think their backstory is, and I had some really good ideas that will connect kind of everything through the book. I think my B plot was a little weak. I kind of had a fuzzy idea of what I wanted that mystery to be, but now I think there's a much sharper and more intriguing idea for that B plot that I think will make a lot more sense and just like kind of put everything that I have been like thinking of in a nebulous way for the past few years for this book into like much sharper relief. So I am very excited about that, and it does kind of make me think about being nicer to myself, that, you know, there is the idea that I could have had done this book or had this book finished a few years ago, and that a lot of time has passed since I published my first book. But, you know, sometimes you need that time to think and to germinate and to let all these ideas come together. And, you know, it's possible that me from a few years ago wouldn't be able to have thought of these new ideas for the different subplots. And I think the new draft, I'm confident, will be the best one yet. And I'm very excited about it. So tomorrow I'll get to brainstorming and pulling all my ideas, free writing about all the different characters, sketching some of the settings, and then we'll see where we go from there. But overall, feeling very jazzed. So now most all of the pieces are in place. Writing is one of my 3 things. I have simplified, and now when I go around, I will default to doing drafting work, bring my writing notebook. I've made a pact that for the next now 85 days, I'll be writing 1,200 words a day. And I've consolidated all of my writing information into one notebook to make it easier to simplify and have one thing to carry around with me. And the last thing that I want to talk about is what I touched on before with distraction, where for me, at least lately, it's been YouTube. In the past, it's been TikTok. But there is something that you reach for when you really mean to write, and it can be so frustrating that you're not writing, and that instead you're doing this thing that you didn't plan for. When you woke up that day, you didn't know that you were going to spend an hour or 2 watching random YouTube videos. But I think in the past where I've gone wrong with this is demonizing it as a whole and saying, oh my goodness, I should just cut out TikTok entirely. I should just cut out YouTube entirely. It's so addicting and distracting, and it's the main reason that I'm failing. And that has worked, technically. I have been able to just delete the app and then complete a draft. But I think more importantly, and the more sustainable route that I'm trying to take now, is to understand where the instinct to open the app comes from. Yes, part of it is the addictive design, and that they want you to stay on as long as possible, and they're feeding you content to keep you on as long as possible. But I think there's also a part that requires introspection to understand why you felt the need to open the app, and whether that's avoiding a negative emotion. For me, a lot of the time, it's the idea that, oh, maybe this won't get traditionally published. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe this draft won't be the one, and I'll have to do an entirely new one. And so in order to just like avoid all those negative feelings, I instead open the app. But now recognizing that that's what's happening, you can be a lot kinder to yourself. I can be a lot kinder to myself and just decide, you know, okay, I recognize that it's hard, but I'm just going to focus on the here and now and writing 1,200 words, or opening up my journal and just enjoying the process of learning the characters and figuring out the plot and deciding what the world building should look like, instead of thinking 12 steps ahead. So just focusing on my PACT and hoping that is enough to carry me through. I also, as a part of this, am going to start using my free write again. I got off of this kick a little bit and was just using my normal laptop. But when I did a video comparing how much I could write on every single one of my devices, I actually wrote the most on here. And if you're interested in that, that video is linked here. But I will see you in the next one. Have a great day, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.